was approved. For this example, and in general for all the transactions in Umoja, remember or keep in mind that any inventory transaction is followed by a warehouse transaction, regardless of the process that you are doing. In this scenario, we are doing a goods issue, but any other scenario that I can think about, every time that there is an inventory transaction, then there is a warehouse transaction after that. Okay, doesn't matter if we are doing physical verification, counting and controlling, any of the process. Having said this, let me share my screen. This is the exercise that you will receive, and everything is explained together with screenshots. Also, you have a job aid very detailed with screenshots, and remember, a notification that can be used as a template. I want to get my, yes, the cover page. We did all the way to the goods issue. We did these steps, and then we are going to do the transfer order for picking, meaning that we will reflect in Umoja the process of removing the laptops from a bin in a storage type and giving it to the staff members. We will then update the equipment in order to reflect the fact that the equipment is being assigned to a staff member, and the staff member is assigned to a functional location, so it will be easier to locate where the equipment is at any moment. Okay, we are not going to upload a scan notification signature, but uploading in ECC is the same process in all the T codes, and then we will complete and close the notification. So yes, let's start with the warehouse transactions. First of all, okay, I need the user ID. Warehouse senior user. It's this one. Remember that we already identified the product ID. So what the warehouse senior user is before creating a transfer order for picking and approving it, to check in what bins there are some units of the material ID that has been identified that the users need. So we have added in this exercise a report. Of course, it's not a mandatory field because when we do transfer order for picking, the system is going to propose the origin or the location where the bin where the items are sitting. But I assume that for you at any point in the liquidation process will be using this T code. It's called the bin status report, and the T code is LX003, sorry. You will insert your warehouse. Remember that the warehouse is not just a piece of building, but it's the compound where the warehouse is, and it's made of different storage types that will be what we know as different types of buildings or areas, okay? So we're going to identify, let's say, in the warehouse, that's our mission and our section, the sector of the mission has. And this is the warehouse. Yes. I want to filter, for example, my material. It is this for the laptop. So the system is going to tell me that in the compound area, let's say called warehouse, some missions that are big missions, and I assume UNAMID is like this, will have different warehouse, meaning that different areas of the country has a compound called warehouse corresponding to different sections. So in the warehouse that we are working for the laptop codified as this material, there are a number of bins that has those type of computers, and this column means the number of days that these computers have been sitting in the bin. So, okay, we will be able to retrieve 2 computers in order to give it to the staff members. What we will do is to create, is the same user, the warehouse senior user, to create a transfer order for picking. The C code to be used is LT06. And we will include the material document year is 2020. The material document is the goods receipt that the goods receipt that we did before breaking for lunch, and it's the inventory transaction. It was a goods issue for 2 units of laptops. So this is what we are going to extract. And we specify the warehouse. We click on enter. So this is the material, the plant and the storage location that owns the material. And we are going to we put as destination bin 911. What is 911? Goods issue area for cost center. Okay. The system, if we are not identifying where the system is going to take the computers, but we are going to the system to propose. So here, the proposal is that the movement of data is from this bin to the goods issue for cost center, this bin, okay? In principle, we agree. So what we will do is to press, sorry. Wait. Okay, I was looking at some other place and create transfer order from transfer requirement. Okay, I assume is this one. Okay, this is the, we saved and we created the transfer order for picking. It's 1171. I'm taking note of that. And the next step, once this is like an order for the warehouse user to look and to go to the specific bin and remove them and to hand it over in the goods issue area for cost center, right, in the 911. So now it's the warehouse user who will walk into the warehouse, to the storage type identified in the transfer order, to the bin identified in the transfer order, to extract the 2 computers and to leave them in the goods issue area. Once that he has or she has done it, she has to confirm the transfer order in the system in order to mark that the task has been performed. So I'm going to log in. Let's imagine that the person did it, remove the items from the bin, and is going to confirm the order. The T code to confirm the order was LT11, so it's going to write the transfer order and the warehouse. And this is what this person did, to put 2 units of this material in from this bin to destination bin, to this destination bin, this area, which is goods issue for cost center. So let's say in an area near the gate of the storage type, and it's going to confirm that the action has been performed and save. Okay, so far we did the warehouse transactions that has to follow the inventory transaction, and what the material, what the SD11 is going to do is to update the notification in order to reflect these actions. We will log in as SD11 role and update the notification. Our notification was this one. So this is it. So we are going to put, for example, transfer order for picking is 1171. We can add the material doc for goods issue was 49000 29269. What we're going to do as well, okay, we can put the serial number of the equipment that we have been giving. If the notification was about only one equipment, we will put it here. Since this notification is used for more than one, we can put one in this field. And again, write the 2 serial numbers here. If you are creating a notification for several materials, you can always attach them here. This is the bottom in order to attach documentations. In this scenario, the computer's serial number were these ones. So since they are 2, I am adding one serial number here, which is the original correct field. And then I'm adding them again in the text. As you see, there is not a standard set of mandatory fields, but you have to write what is useful in order to track the history of the actions. Let's say, in this case, I'm considering this, the material or the product ID we used was this one, so I'm completing all the information. So if in some weeks or months someone is continuing with this, they can easily track what happened. Then the next thing you do is to go to the tasks. Let's see, okay. And I'm going to mark all the tasks that are already done. This I'm not going to do it, but let's say that these ones were completed and we need to update the equipment. Okay, so far, another group. Okay, So let's say that the staff member went to the gates of the storage type, collected the 2 laptops, signed printed out document stating that they have collected and that they are responsible for the laptops. These papers, we can attach them in the notification, and the last step is to update the status of the equipment, right? We need to tell the system who is now using the piece of equipment. So we will go to the IE02, and then we will mark for the first equipment, example this one. Here we're going to go to partners, and okay, I think I did it earlier because it's already marked here. Let me tell you something else. In a structure, if we know where Aquila is the staff member working, we update his functional location. So this is already updated, no need to update. And I assume that for the other equipment, we did the same. So the serial number 2, for example, is for Ginger. I will go to, I know what happened. I was practicing with another exercise. Okay, so this is what we will do. In order to update who is, using the equipment now, we have to mark it as user accountable. And we will take the business partner of the user, paste it here, click on enter, the name appears, and to mark the functional location of the business partner. Wait, it's not allowing me to, sorry, here. So we did it. We update the status of the equipment. And finally, we will close the notification. This is the notification. And then we make sure that all the tasks are marked as completed. No, let me check.
Hi, Elena, before you complete the notification.
Here, yes. Okay.
Before you do that, yes. Make sure have you spoken about the equipment, the status, sorry, of the equipment?
Yes.
Okay, just make sure it's the correct one. I know I also see a comment here from Pietro Contento about the user status. It doesn't seem to be according to what it's supposed to be, right? Idle instead of assigned, or in this case, you're assigning it.
I am assigning, yes.
Okay, you're assigning it. So right now, what do we have? If you can just explain that the status is in this case, because right now you're in the notification still, right?
Yeah.
The equipment status.
Yes, I'm closing the notification. Okay. The notification, the status is that notification is in process and all tasks have been completed. What I want is to close it. And these are only the status that are available. Let me check the status of the equipment. This was the last equipment we checked. Okay, this is good. So the status here is that the equipment is idle, meaning that hasn't been it's available, let's say, hasn't been assigned to anyone. So we will change the status to assigned. Right? Is this?
Yeah, this is mainly so students can understand, right? Yesterday we received materials, right, into the inventory, and then we put it away in the warehouse. So when we receive this equipment, it automatically receives a status, right, from the system that tells us that this equipment is either installed or idle or available, right? There's an automatic status that is assigned to these pieces of equipment that come in then as the user using now, right, the master data maintainer local goes into this equipment to assign it either to someone else like you're doing today, right? What you're doing today is basically going into these pieces of equipment. Let's say, imagine these are the ones we received yesterday, right? And what you did earlier this morning, you either enriched the statuses of this equipment or enrich the equipment in general, or now you're changing the status of the equipment to assigned because this equipment is assigned to someone else, right? And the importance of that is that if these things are not done properly, right? If Elena had just saved, for example, leaving the equipment idle, but it's actually assigned to someone, the next time we try to do something with this piece of equipment, no one's going to know, right, that somebody has this piece of equipment assigned to them. So we could maybe go into inventory and say, oh, let's issue this out. But the status should say that this equipment is assigned. So when you pull a report of the equipment statuses, you should know exactly, right, if you can or if you cannot and why. And this is also key when we're doing write-off, right? If something shows as idle or assigned when it's back in stock, when it's in write-off process, that needs to be stated. Okay, this is like what we're talking about with the notification, right? We're making sure that we prove that we follow the steps one by one and that we prove we have done each step. In terms of editing or changing equipment statuses, we're doing the same thing in a way, right? We're telling the system inventory, the inventory management elements, that in this case, this particular piece of equipment is now assigned and cannot be goods issued or cannot be written off. Or we're telling it it's idle. You can grab it and do whatever it is you need to do with it. Or it's in write-off process or in transit. So the status of the equipment is basically that. You're telling the system if this equipment is available or not and why.
Yes,
yeah, back
correct.
to you, Elena.
Correct, Pietro and Brian. Thanks for the heads up. Also, remember that you will be only changing the user status, the system status changes automatically. And you save, and continuing with closing the notification. The tasks, I wanted to tell you something. For if you would like to add a task that is not pre-populated, you just simply put the cursor here and write. This is the way to add a task. It's very simple. And yes, when you are completing individual tasks, it is by clicking on these flags here at the bottom to release the task and then to complete one by one the task. But then when you want to complete the entire notification is by clicking the arrow here. You will click yes, and the notification is completed. So we completed the end-to-end process for assigning the computers. And I prepared another polling questions. So let's hear you. And I'm going to post this questionnaire in the chat so you can complete it if you want to. Hope it works. Let me refresh it. Okay, you can complete the questions and we can see if the answers are homogeneous or not. And to clarify, also, I don't know if there are other questions posted.
No, Elena, nothing in the chat. The last comment was from Pietro, and then Mimo came in. and was also inquiring about that explanation on the user statuses, right, for equipment. So I think it's maybe worth it later on. I know there's one more transaction left where we're going to skip the notification just to show the transaction itself, right, the update of the equipment, basically. And maybe we can dive in a little bit into the whole, the statuses of equipment, right, what it means to have a system status versus a user status. And not exactly well, like every single status depending on the action, but what it means, right? And the difference between the two. And we can also see that when we start pulling reports in BI, because we're going to leave a little section for that also in the afternoon, you're going to see how important it is to have the correct user status assigned to the equipment. But not only that, you're also going to understand that if you don't do the processes correctly in inventory, right, or warehouse, you'll realize how you can pull a report with information and realize in the long run that everything's wrong. But it's not because the BI report is wrong, it's because nobody did the correct transaction or updated the status of equipment when they had to. Okay, so in the meantime, so Elena, I'm going to take another look. I think Angelo Claudio also added a comment here. This is the case of issuance of personal device. Can you explain when is issued to an infrastructure? Okay, we'll try to jump into that one. If not, we'll take note of that one because I don't know. I don't think we have an exercise for that exactly. But we can probably take a look at that, Elena.
Rack, meaning assigned to a superior equipment.
So what you mean, Claudia, is the functional location itself, assigned to a functional location and not to a person?
Yes, actually, let's say that I'm installing a server in a data center. Okay, as a business partner, I can assign the piece of equipment to the technician responsible to the data center. But of course, when it comes to the functional location, I cannot assign the office of the technician. I have to assign the proper functional location, which could be the data center.
Okay.
In that case, and also the status, and also. Yes, and also the case is when you're installing a server in a rack, meaning you have a rack with several components, you can also, through the status, you can also identify if the item is assigned to a superior equipment. Basically, I can assign a server to the rack in terms of status, which is the status is ASEQ, A-S-E-Q. So there are different options when you're issuing an equipment. When you're issuing up to a personal, when you're issuing a personal device to a staff member, you can assign the functional location of the office of the staff member. When you're issuing,
sorry, Claudia,
this is important. This is important because especially during the PCIU verification, when you are doing a liquidation and you need to look after a piece of equipment which is installed in a certain point. You need to understand and need to know where the equipment is installed. Otherwise, you can end up having all the data center assigned to the functional location of the technician, to the office.
Exactly. So maybe if you don't mind, since people are still taking the assessment too, and Elena, if you want to share your screen again and show maybe that last piece of equipment that you just updated the status for. So we can show those types of statuses that we can assign to that piece of equipment like Angelo was talking about, because this is, I guess this is going to be something that's also, they're going to be facing during liquidation. So it's at least worth looking at, even if we don't perform the entire action, but at least show the different types of statuses and the assignment to the functional location like we're talking about. I know we don't have an exercise per se for you guys to do that exactly, but maybe we can just show it. I think by looking at the screen, it should be enough, maybe.
Let's say this is the equipment and 2 usage periods exist for today's date. Okay, this is the equipment. I click on the glasses in order to edit. So we were mentioning that when we want to assign into a functional location, then we need to know the code of the functional location and put it here.
You see, there is a super order equipment.
Ah, okay. So.
And also the status, rather than to be EQUAS, it should be EQES.
Okay, so that, yeah, That's very important. So actually, before Elena, you even look for that one, if you can just close that window for change equipment installation location, so we can show students here. You see that this equipment, this computer tablet right now, has the status installed. That's a system status automatically. And then you have the equipment assigned, which is what Elena did manually, right? With the role that she has. And now it's been assigned. But if we look below, if we go back to the screen before.
Correct.
Oh, below.
Yeah, and you see that you have a functional location, right, for this equipment already there stated. But this is the functional equipment of maybe where the equipment is found, but it's not necessarily assigned to that functional location, correct, Claudio? That's what we're getting to.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and to make that change, you click on the icon that Elena is clicking on there, change install location, and we see a below area where it says superior equipment there. And there's where we would add that functional location, right? Or the superior equipment that this equipment is assigned to, right? It's like it's part of it.
Yes.
Okay.
As long as these two are related, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually you have, for example, a rack, which is a functional location, which could be a data center, okay? If you can assign a server to the rack, so basically the server will be assigned to the rack, which is in a functional location already.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
This kind of operation will make life much easier when you do for example, the physical verification.
Mm-hmm. And exactly. So we're talking about this functional location, which could be a place, right? A location, an office, a warehouse, a specific location. But the other superior equipment field is going to link it to another piece of equipment, right? That's why it's called superior equipment. It's like an alternator in a car, right? It's that alternator is linked to that car. But the location would be the garage, for example. So that's how we can understand the difference between one and the other. And as Claudio is saying, and it's very important, if we added a superior equipment, then we'd have to go back to the status of the equipment. And instead of assigned, we would have to select another type of equipment status, which was the one that we were talking about here. EQ, hold on, were there some before here?
Right.
Okay, sorry, Claudio, which equipment status did you mention before?
There's supposed to be EQES, equipment assigned, EQES, I believe.
Okay, it doesn't seem to be in this environment.
I don't know why it's not there. Yeah, I don't know what it's there.
Yeah.
But I can share with you. I can share with you. Actually, I do have an Excel spreadsheet with all the different statuses and combination of statuses.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yes.
There is the ones for the notification and the ones for the equipment also. I can share with you the file.
Very good. That would be great. Even share it in the chat of the
course.
channel.
Let me find it out and I will share it.
Perfect. Very good. Thank you. And thanks, Elena, for showing that too.
Thank you. So yes, this is where we assign it to a functional location. In the tab partners, we assign it to a user responsible. And yeah, this is what I wanted to show. Let's see how are the responses going. If it loads. No, it's not loading so far. Well, so let's continue. The last scenario we wanted to show is the equipment handover or transfer. It's nothing new to what we have seen. Actually, it's much shorter. The process will be just create a notification to assign like one piece of equipment that was using someone to give it to someone else and to reflect it in the equipment. So basically, the steps to assign a piece of equipment is to create and approve a notification, process it, okay, print it, so the new user acknowledges and signs the receipt of the equipment. You will upload it into the notification. Then the equipment record needs to be updated. So instead of a functional location, the functional location needs to be updated, as well as the partner user responsible needs to be updated, and then to complete the notification. There are no new steps, only to tell you that there is no job aid for this, and there is no notification template for this, meaning that you will create a notification from scratch by adding the task as per your experience, let's say. Let me show you. I created in the break because it's a quite lengthy process to create the notification and so on, since we have seen it just this morning. Let me a notification so that I created so we can have a look instead of creating it. So for example, I call it, it will be a blank notification. When you create the notification, you don't need to reference to any template. So you will put the title of the notification as you want. It's a P1 notification. And then you update with the information required. No? So the requestor is Aquila, the current owner is Ginger, and this is the material. You complete the data. Since it's one computer, you can add the serial number of the computer that is going to be handed over here. Then you will complete the task as you want. In this case, I put this task, but remember that if you want to add new task, just start typing here, and then you will be able to add the tasks. And yes, here we need to play with the statuses as well, as we have said. In this case, the notification was approved. And then once it's approved, then it's a matter of going to the equipment. IE03 to check. I don't remember anymore what is the number of the equipment. So is this one. So we will put the equipment that is going to be transferred from one person to the other. This is a display. So if we want to edit, we click on this icon, and basically we will touch a couple of fields as we have seen. We will touch structure to add the new functional location of the person that is going to receive the laptop, and the partner. So here we will change user accountable instead of the old person, the new person. Basically, this is it. As you have said, then we will need to change the status. So the status, for example, can be the assigned. I'm looking for the status that we were mentioning earlier, but I don't see it. Okay, we will change the user status assigned.
Yes, actually, Pietro Contento was mentioning that it could be, I'm not sure because of this environment, but it could be that once we add the, or there's a change in the installation infrastructure. So when we add maybe the superior equipment, there's a new status that appears that we can select there. I'm not 100% sure, as we've never done it in the training environment. It could be that it's either there already or it appears once you've made, that selection. That's something that we'll have to check.
The super order, you mean this super order equipment?
I'm guessing that could happen now that a new status is available, because I think that at the beginning, before you actually start doing something with the equipment, there are a certain amount of options to select, and then when you change things, there's different types of options to select. So that could happen.
Correct. Yes, it can happen. I don't know if someone else has anything to add. No.
Okay.
So
Pietro
yes.
is sharing a screenshot. If you want to maybe go into the chat and click on it so it maximizes and everybody can see it. Of actually adding a superior equipment number and then seeing how the system status is changed.
Hi, Brian.
Yes, Pietro.
Yeah, just retrieve a snapshot just to show to all of you, and because the system status is affected when you, I mean, yeah, this one. When you add more info, and in this case, superior equipment, it means that, as Claudio stated, I mean, when you install items in a rack, and the system status is changed. That's all.
Exactly. So there's not an option to change the user status?
No.
Okay, it's the option of the system status that changes automatically once we add.
Once you have superior equipment, let's say function location, the system status change in that one, AQ, AS, ASEQ.
Yeah, it's correct.
ASEQ, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's a great example. So if everyone can check the chat, I think if Elena's looking for it, but if everyone can just look at the chat and you can click on the screenshot that Pietro shared, you'll see that. Okay, I see that there's a superior equipment number added, and then the status is now ASEQ. Okay, so that's done automatically in the system, and it's not a user status that you update manually, but it happens automatically.
Okay, sorry guys, I could not hear you for a while. So yeah, we in the assignment of equipment, we update the equipment and then we close the notification. I can go to the notification and close it. This is the process. Do you want me, it's locked, to repeat it, or you are okay with receiving the exercise explaining the process for equipment assignment, giving one equipment from one person to the other?
I think maybe just a quick summary orally, if you want to, of the two exercises you have performed, just to explain to them, because the notification I think is quite clear. We really drilled down on that one. But what you were doing in terms of equipment statuses and system statuses, right, for the first exercises, I believe your first one was enrichment, right? The second one is assignment, and your third one is handover, right?
Correct. So we did.
Yeah. So if you can just summarize the main key aspects that you want people to remember from the first two exercises in terms of equipment, more than notification.
Okay, in terms of equipment, when the goods is when the goods receipt is done, the equipment comes into the inventory as equipment available, if I don't recall. And then what you have to do is to review what is the mandatory, the pre-populated fields that have been pulled out from the material register and the purchase order. From the purchase order, you will receive information such as the posting date and the price and the storage location, etc. And then you will pull information from the material master. And then you can also enrich optional information. The optional tabs will be different if you are dealing with a vehicle product ID, generator product ID, or the rest of the equipment. So if you want to, you can enrich the equipment master with information. This is for the equipment enrichment. Then for the equipment assignment, it's about assigning the equipment to a business partner and the functional location, and also to moving, instead of equipment idle, you will always work with the user status. The system status becomes automatically changed. So instead of equipment idle, which means assigned to nobody and let's say available to use, you will change it to assign in this case. But there are other status like in maintenance or in transit or in write-off, etc. that we will see in the sessions of write-off. And yeah, in the example of handover, it will be the same status. It's a status assigned. We just learned that there is like 2 layers of assigning the equipment to a functional location. So we knew about like a first layer, which is to assign it to a functional location, but now we just learned that there is like a other layer, a functional location installed in another functional location, and that will open other possibilities for equipment status. This is the summary. And let me check the responses. Okay, this is, let me see these answers. Let me see the answer number 2. Okay, which sequence is correct? Reservation, goods issue, notification, and picking. Okay, well, it's a little bit tricky. Notification, goods issue, picking and update equipment, sales order, goods received, notification and reservation, and goods issue, picking, goods received, and equipment update. Okay, we can discard the last 2 as they don't make much sense. And here I understand that is the notification part where it can be confusing, as the notification starts at the beginning and continues up to the end of the process. But actually it will be, yeah, it's misleading. Notification, goods issue, picking, and update equipment. But this order is not incorrect either, to be honest. So I understand that there were 50-50, and then one notification can be used to assign multiple equipment numbers. Yes, we can do one notification for multiple equipment. We just need to, if it's needed, we can attach the Excel or the Word document or the PDF as an attachment and putting all the information in the text box in the notification. It is not the same for the fixed assets. A fixed asset requires a notification per fixed asset. But for the equipment, we can do multiple equipments in one notification. Then the role of the notification is to track all the tasks that are required to assign an equipment, covering inventory management, warehouse management, and equipment management transactions. True, 17 false 6 is true. So yes, the notifications is to track all the tasks, even if the tasks are in inventory, warehouse, and equipment updates. Okay. I want to assign an equipment to a staff member. The first step is to create notification. How do I create the notification? Let me see. By contacting Umoja support? No. By creating a notification and adding the tasks? Yes. 91% of you answered correctly. By checking the template, well, this is as well correct in Appendix B of the job aid. Okay, this is actually the correct one. And by contacting our team, 0. Okay. Either or. You can create your notification from scratch and add in the tasks manually, but easier, you can use the template available in the job aid. Okay, well done. And I have finished from my side. Brian, over to you. I don't know if you want some BI reports or to leave time to practice with exercises.
Yes, we're ready to start showing some BI reports that I think will also help with the explanations of the statuses and why it's important. Also, I see in the chat that Daniel Criado is also sharing very clear, and I recommend to take a look at them, very clear and important screenshots of system statuses that update automatically when we're receiving or issuing goods from the system. I also highly recommend to take a look at that Excel that Angelo Claudia has posted in the channel. I think that's going to help you guys understand. But as long as you guys had an understanding of, first, of course, why notifications are important and why they must be used, but more clearly, what it means, right, that equipment has a status in the system, what it means that it has a system status, what it means that it has a user status, and what the consequences of having one status versus another, and the impact across structural elements, okay, whether we're talking about inventory, warehouse, and not only that, but also transactional wise. We can't perform certain transactions if these statuses are not changed properly. And if we do perform these transactions with these statuses incorrectly added or not changed, let's say, we may create a huge ball of chaos later on. Okay, so we just want to stress the fact that every step that we're demoing here is very important for you to understand. And definitely take a look at your chat right now. If you need 5 minutes to take a look at these screenshots, take a look at them. In the meantime, what we can do is we can start getting BI ready and running one of the reports. And let's jump into that and take a look so we can get our minds out of ECC and jump into something else. All right, and if somebody wants to add something too, maybe we can take a couple of questions before we go on. If not, then we can maybe hand over the control to, I don't know, Daniel, if you want to take control of the screen maybe and show the BI report.
Yeah, Hi guys. Hello everyone. I'm processing the reports. It's taken a bit of a while, so I think it would be great if we can take, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes of break. And after the break, I will make sure that the reports are duly loaded, because it's today is not the best day for BI performance. I don't know why, but still, I mean, I created the reports and they are there. So, but let's wait.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do that.
Minutes.
Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and come back and dive into BI. Thanks. Okay, everyone, I just shared in the channel, the chat of the channel, the Excel that Claudio was sharing with us. I recommend taking a look at it. I think it's going to help understand the presentations that we've just shared today in the demos. Take a look at that Excel. You can open it up directly from the chat in the channel, not in this meeting per se, but in the channel. I can also add it to the chat here, actually. I'll just do that at the same time while we're waiting for the BI portion to be ready to go. Here you go. So again, remember you have two chats, right? One for the meeting and then one for the channel. It does seem like I tried to add it to the one here, but it doesn't seem to take it. No, but it does accept it in the channel chat. Okay, so just go back to that one and you'll see that the Excel there. I just uploaded it.
Okay, Brian. Hi.
All right, then.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I was just playing around with the reports for equipment this morning, and it's a shame that today the BI tool is not working so smoothly as some other days. I don't know why. But in any case, I was able to take a couple of screenshots of the reports that I created. And I think that based on the discussions of today's session on equipment, I think that it will be good to take really a close look to the analysis workspace that we have available for equipment in general, right? So let me share my screen and see whether I can, let's see, share initially the list of reports. Okay, do you see my screen? Do you see the presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is what the presentation that you will receive today. For BI, always, we're giving to you what we call the mind map, or some sort of driving thread in terms of the life cycle of a particular piece of equipment or goods, right? From the part of receiving that we touched base yesterday up until we dispose those equipments at the very end of the life cycle of the equipment. So we always start with that, so we have a good visual of the reports involved in the different stages of the life cycle. And then what we usually do is to give you a slide with the basic information of what this report is about. The report that we're going to cover today, it's the analysis workspace for equipment. Okay, this is really, I think it's one of the top 3 reports that I would use if I was deployed, okay? And you'll see why. First of all, it's not intended to give you any KPI whatsoever. So you will not see any percentage or any number that will tell you whether you are below or above any certain threshold. But on the contrary, it's going to give you a very wide perspective of the different items that you have in your mission in terms of equipment, which it's their acquisition value in local currency or US dollars, how much money we have that in stock for any type of category of equipment, which is the operational depreciation, or the depreciation of if that piece of equipment it's a fixed asset. And on top of that, as you can see in the screen, we have here plenty of different categories of elements you'll see in the report that you can drag and drop into the report from different information on the storage locations in case that storage location has changed from one to another, a description of the type of material used for that equipment, which is the maintenance plant, which is the material type. I'm just reading there, randomly, you have around 175, I think, different categories that you can drag and drop. So you can really drill down to the very specifics of any particular equipment, or on the contrary, you can, let's say, have a very wide and holistic perspective of the number of the pieces of equipment that you have in your mission, right? Or in a particular fan center or in a storage location, right? So depending on the type of analysis that you want to put forward, you can either drill down to the specifics of a particular equipment master record, or just see, let's see, things for 40,000 feed perspective, right? So, and we'll tell you how to do those things. As you can see, I was taking screenshots because the system was not really performing well. But initially, you'll see that you have a list of measures. Measures are, numbers that you can add or show in the report. And this is basically where we're talking here is business objects. And then there, you can see that besides the report itself, we do have plenty of job aids available. And I want to drag your attention to the job aid for the analysis workspace on equipment, because in the presentation I took note of several screenshots, but really this is not a job aid per se related to this specific report, but on the contrary, it gives you information on the description of all the type of materials, all types of systems status and user status, and I agree with you guys. It's not easy to understand initially what this means. That's why I wanted to share this what I called this screenshot in the chat with the three main system statuses that you can apply to a particular piece of equipment. The first one is ESTO, in stock. Second one is available, and third one is installed. Those are the three main system status that you can find in Equipment Master Record. And those system status cannot be changed by any user whatsoever. You can be SD11 or SD10. You can even create a piece of equipment, but you cannot change the system status because it's the system itself which changes its status based on the actions that you are taking to the piece of equipment. So all that information is here in the job aid. Okay, so there you have plenty of information of how to log in and which is the objective of the job aid. But always, go all the way down to the very last part of the job aid in order to identify which is the scope determination. This is very important because we will tell you the amount of data that it's within the cube, the data cube of this particular report. So for the analysis workspace on equipment, the system is going to select all equipment records, regardless the status, regardless the system status, the user status, regardless the life cycle of what that equipment is, regardless the storage location. You have plenty of information, and there is no, let's say, you're not filtering out any type of equipment whatsoever. So in the presentation, you have a link to the job aid, as you can see over here. Okay, so there I really invite you to go through this job aid and see how it works. As I see, these are screenshots even of the different system statuses that you can find in a particular piece of equipment. As Pietro Contento was saying before, sometimes as you are applying different transactions into a piece of equipment, this system status may add another status into the main system status. For example, here you have here available and then allocated to a superior equipment, as you were mentioning before. So that the system is like keeping track or logging the different system status that this particular piece of equipment have had so far. So first it was available, and then it has been allocated to a superior equipment. The same with this one, for example, initially was available. Then there was a deletion flag. So that piece of equipment was deleted from the system point of view. And after that, the object was deactivated from the system. So do not really panic if you see that you have several system statuses within one equipment master record. Okay, so that's first of all, because you in real life, as we know, and especially in when we're going to downsize or even liquidate a mission, you might find a lot of dirty data, and that dirty data will be affecting the equipment master record. So you may find status system status which are not really compliant with the user status. So that's why BI gives you a good hand, because what you can do here, and it will try to show my screen right now. Let me drag to the other part. Let's see if I can drag it or not. Or maybe what I'm going to do is going to share the other screen. Let me just, I'm going to stop sharing and share again, sorry. Let me see. Okay. Here we go. Let me see if I can just drag. Okay, again, I'm going to, because it's not easy with so many screens. Okay, again, hopefully you may see here a report. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes, we can, Daniel.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, because
it is slow.
Every time you're, it's slow, exactly, and sometimes it's kind of like hard to really play around with the report.
The window itself.
So the window itself, exactly. So this is the report for the analysis workspace. And sorry, because I'm going from one screen to the laptop and it has to resize it. But you see these tab statuses? This is the report itself that I created this morning, okay? So first thing, if I go into the mission, and this is linked to the Excel that I think that Claudio shared in the chat, okay? So let's say I'm deployed in UNAMID now, and this is actually data from UNAMID. If, for example, my first task is to map the different statuses of all the equipment subject to be, let's say, written off in the next 2 months, what I would do is I will use this report in order to drag the category system status, you see, equipment system status description. The first here is the first column over here, okay? And here we have, as you could see in the job aid, different system statuses from different pieces of equipment. This is real data, okay? And I dragged from the left panel to the rows the user status. So I have here a combination of the system status and user status. So if actually we link this report from UNAMID with the Excel that Claudio shared, we could see which system statuses are not really compliant with the user status available right now. So for example, we could see now, we can see that this set of equipments here from, I think we have 1, 7, 1, 10, 4, and 1, okay, have all of them the system status available and then installed. On the contrary, we have at the same time that those pieces of equipment, they have user status, idle, or write-off in process, sale disposal method, donation disposal method, scrap as it is. So you may understand that some system status do not correspond with the following user statuses, right? So you really have to take a look whether it makes sense. Those combinations of system and user statuses are really making sense, because at the end of the day, as you could see in Elena's presentation in the morning and in the afternoon, really what it's going to affect down the road, the quality of data, it's what the local master data maintainer is applying in the equipment master record. What this lady is doing is going to basically affect the user status, and if the user status in a particular piece of equipment is not properly updated or is not updated whatsoever, we will have inconsistencies here in this combination of system status and user statuses, okay? So as I said, first thing I would do in order to have a good mapping of all the equipment in the particular mission, is to create this report with the statuses, system, and user statuses. Here I have the number of pieces of equipment for each combination, okay? This is real data, and as I said, and then I have acquisition value of US dollars for all of them, okay? So if I go down here, for example, I can see that plenty of equipment it's in the warehouse, and you can see that 14,811 of them are idle. Well, it kind of makes sense, right? Because idle is like those equipments are in standby, and well, it's normal that they are in the warehouse and they are in standby, okay? But in the warehouse and then assigned to a particular operation, we have 8. Okay, maybe we want to know which these 8 pieces of equipment are. because maybe some of them are not properly updated and we have to take action, right? Or they are in the warehouse, but the equipments are not found. You see, 489 and over $2.5 million there. We have some of them, well, a lot of them, over 3,000 in write-off process, okay? And then we have even in disposal, disposal scrap as it is. So these pieces of equipment, these 6 pieces of equipment worth over $162,000 are in the warehouse, but will be disposed in a way, right? So as I said, this combination of system and user statuses, most of them will make sense, but some of them will not. And your knowledge after these 2 weeks, the Excel that Claudio shared before, and the situation of the life cycle or a particular life equipment master record will give you a good idea of whether these numbers really will have to be taken care of, right? Things like, for example, if I go down, one equipment here, you see the last one, it's installed and it's actually been deactivated. But the user status is E0053, disposal not required. Okay, it's $4,000. We may want to know why disposal is not required. It's been deactivated. Okay, so in order to see and, as I said, drill down a little bit in our analysis, then what I would do here is I will drag and drop the equipment serial number to the rows, and here I will see which is the number, the equipment master record exactly for this particular piece of equipment. And from there, I will go to ECC, to IE02, if I am the local master data maintainer for that particular piece of equipment, and I will take action if needed, okay? So this is just, it's kind of like a simple analysis by just dragging and dropping 2 categories of elements, system and user status, but gives you a very good idea of this combination, or especially the combinations that do not make sense. And based on that, you're going to filter them and analyze those pieces of equipment. I don't know if it was clear, the explanation. I didn't want to actually do the report live because it was taking some time. So I just wanted to, have it done. And then over this layout, I wanted to explain to you. But over to you in case we have questions or some comments. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. I think if you even leave that image now, right, I think it's very important, the report that you just showed and the analysis that you've made of the user status versus system status, because as someone that is being deployed to a mission, right, one of the first things you need to understand is this too, right? What I would do, for example, is extract this this report into an Excel, maybe even print it out, and have next to me an Excel like the one that Claudio is sharing. I'm looking at it and I'm trying to compare. I don't see all the possible, let's see, we have the warehouse and installed, but then I also see you have warehouse, assigned and delivery node, warehouse, object deactivated. So the Excel itself doesn't give you all the possible combinations, but yes, I guess the more standard ones, right? If, for example, it's in warehouse, you should have this user status, or you could have this user status. If it's in stock, then this or the other. But one of the first things I would do is cross-check, right? What a report is telling me versus what it should be, right? And start highlighting things that don't make any sense. And once those things are highlighted, I know I have a plan of attack, right? Of saying, okay, this is what I need to deal with. So I think it's very important. And the way you've covered it was very understandable.
So yeah, exactly, Brian, for example. I mean, I don't want to go one by one, but things that will really drag your attention, okay? Available and deactivated. Okay, so I may assume that this set of equipments, okay, these ones, are, from the system point of view, deactivated. But some of them, okay, are, from the user status perspective, idle. But one of them is assigned. So I would wonder myself if I mean, this is information on Darfur, if I'm deploying Darfur, is why we have a piece of equipment assigned if it's already deactivated. It shouldn't be deactivated, it's already assigned. So we have to basically probably go to the equipment master record, dismantle this piece of equipment. We'll show you how to do that in next week, and then the user status will change. You will have to change from assigned to probably deactivated, right? So the system and user status will actually be linked, and it will make sense, right? So all these things, I mean, from the equipment point of view, will have to be done at some point once you guys are deployed. And as I said, BI, it's a good tool in order to do so. The only limitation is sometimes it's a bit slow, but don't worry. I mean, whether it takes 5 or 10 minutes, as Brian was saying, if you have your report ready, you can always extract to Excel, and from there you can work and do the transactions in ECC, right? So the good thing about BI is just that eventually it will take 10 minutes. It's okay, I can live with that, but I will have my plan of attack, and that plan of attack will be the Excel that you have extracted from this piece of report. Okay, so this is the first step, the statuses. Then if you want to, and then we can go back to this one later on, okay? But for example, you can always analyze as well what I call the authorization groups. I remember that some student in the morning said that they found out that plenty of pieces of equipment, they didn't have any authorization group. And that's important. Why? Because the authorization group will give you the scope or responsibilities of the SD11, right? The person who will eventually will have to take an action to the equipment master record, right? Now in Darfur, we have at least 306 pieces of equipment with no authorization group, okay? So what I would do, for example, I will filter, I will select this one, this row, and I'm not going to do the full analysis because it's taking some time. But if you right click, and then you see, okay, I want to keep these members. Okay, if I click here, keep members, what I would do, I will only have this line with these 306 pieces of equipment. And from there, I can just go to the left panel here, go to the equipment serial number, for example, I will drag it into the rows, and here I will have 306 rows with all the serial numbers of these pieces of equipment with no authorization group whatsoever, right? On the contrary, I have we Darfur has several other authorization groups, and it seems that the majority, right, of the pieces of equipment, they do have an authorization group within the equipment master record, right? So another way to analyze whether there are equipment with no authorization group filled in, it's to drag and drop the equipment authorization group into the rows, right? You have the breakdown automatically there. And the good thing is just you can do an analysis based on the Pareto, right? For example, this Italian mathematician, right? You can really see whether if 80% of the acquisition value actually affects to a particular authorization group. So you will take action to that authorization group rather than the others, right? So you can actually do that analysis based on some prioritization methods and statistical ways that you can do things, especially when you have to take action and you have little time, right? So sometimes, 80% of the situations are occurring because it is happening because of 20% of causes. So that's a way to prioritize in terms of statistical things. But because we are assuming that you probably may not have time or full time to take action to all the equipment master records in the mission in 1 or 2 months. Another way to analyze data in terms of equipment is by function location. And now I clicked, and it's taking a little bit of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the presentation. Okay. And I will show you, if it is not updated, the next report. So let me just take a look at it, because this may take a little bit of time. Let me see if I took the screenshot of it. Okay. Okay, let me see, because I think I take another screenshot. Okay, here I took 2 screenshots, the ones for the different tabs. This one is the statuses, and the other one is for the authorization group, okay? If I go back to the report for functional location, well, even though it's going to take a while, basically the functional location is over here. Instead of the authorization group, where I dragged from the left panel, it's my functional location. And I will see here, instead of an authorization group, different functional locations. And I may see that eventually I have pieces of equipment with no functional locations within their equipment master records. And we may want to take an action on that as well. The same thing with the BP, right? And if we have time and if the system allows us, we will be able to see that. But basically what I did here, I broke down all the pieces of equipment from UNAMID for all the BPs accountable, okay? And as I think Joe, one of the first days said, eventually when you are liquidating a mission, you are handing over, and that's the session that we think, I think it will be done tomorrow, right? We are going to hand over the equipment to a particular BP, with a particular user, and this person will be accountable before we write off or before we deactivate these equipment, right? So if you have a list of all the BPs here, you will have a clear perspective of who has what from the system point of view in terms of equipment assignment. And if someone, for example, has abandoned the mission or has retired or has been reassigned to another mission, but still he or she appears here in the report as user accountable of a number of pieces of equipment, then you will have to take a look at those numbers and take action and dismantle that BP from the equipment master record, right? So as I said, I will try to extract this report into Excel, give it a little bit of format, and I will send it to you, because it's a shame that BI is not working very well right now. But initially, as I said, you are going to analyze the equipment in the mission from the statuses point of view, okay? Then you can do an analysis by the authorization group as well, by functional location, okay? And then, as I said, by BPs. This is the BPs. So these are the user accountables and the number of pieces of equipment which they are accountable for in UNAMID. You can see that we have over 2,000 rows in our report, with the number of pieces of equipment and its acquisition value here. We can see right away that 47,000 equipment in Darfur, they don't have any user accountable whatsoever. Okay, that is going to give you a plan of attack initially, right? It's like, why this is happening, right? On the contrary, if we know, for example, that this person, Amarit Sig, which it's accountable for 2 pieces of equipment, he is not in the mission anymore, we have to take action and identify which these 2 pieces of equipment are, and then dismantle or at least remove that BP from the equipment master record, right? So I will stop here before we take questions or comments. But this is just, let's see, the peak of the iceberg in a way, right? You could see there are plenty in the left panel, plenty of categories of elements that you can use, not only the ones that I've explained, but the ones that are there and may be subject to be used by you in when you are deployed. But initially, the analysis that I did is by statuses, by authorization group, by functional location, and by BP. And then what I did here in this tab called assets, it's to identify the pieces of equipment which are assets as well. Okay, and from there, that's another, let's say, plan of attack. You may want to take action in a separate, let's say, stage, right? Because the assets are treated different in the finance, and maybe you want to have, I don't know, a particular group of people just dealing with assets, right, in the mission. So I will stop here and over to you, Brian, in case that we have any comments or questions.
And not in the chat, Daniel. Thanks for the explanation, and thanks for that breakdown. I know with the system not working well, it probably took some time to get it done, but it's one of these great ways of breaking down this data. What I want you guys to understand is that Daniel is not showing you in the different tabs different data. It's the same data with different information, right? One is user status, one is BP business partner, sorry, others functional locations, but it's always based on that same data, right? That same equipment, same business area, and everything that we have from our first analysis. We're just seeing things differently. And I hope that 47,000 pieces of equipment without an assigned user hasn't scared anyone, okay? But you need to know what you're getting into when you're deployed. You're going to have a lot of fun, that's for sure. These are ways of kind of getting an idea of what you're going to encounter, right? And this is only one course of action, right? Because remember, we're talking from the beginning of pending transactions of incoming goods, pending transactions of put away, pending transactions of picking. Now we're talking about user statuses of equipment, right? That is in the system. So all these are plans of action, right? I have to tackle this one day, I have to tackle the other. Maybe there are different teams tackling different situations. But one of these, and this is something that's very interesting, the fact that a piece of equipment has one status or another can impact the idea of stock that we have, right? We may think that we have a certain amount of things in stock and we actually don't, right? Or if we're looking at something right now in the report that is in stock, but it's also deactivated, but then the user status says it's assigned, also gives us an idea of how many more issues we're going to find in inventory, right? And in warehouse, if this is already the case. Now, I want to also throw this question out there to those Angelos, Nikos, Gianlucas, even Joseph, Kenny out there. If the equipment has two system statuses, right? Because that we see that happens. We see that it's in stock, and then we also see that it's deactivated. And these are system statuses. So this is updated automatically. It's not like a user goes in and changes that. These things happen, you encounter this, and why would you say these things happen? How can these things be avoided, right? To see, for example, that second line there, right? We have available, object deactivated, and then we have 1, 2, 3, right? We have a set of user statuses, but two different system statuses at the same time. So in what situations do we encounter this type of thing? Are these always mistakes? Do some of these make any sense? If I find this when I go to the mission for liquidation, what am I supposed to do? What should I think of? I think those are things that we could discuss right now in the last half hour, because it's important for us to understand this.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, if I may.
Hi.
I don't have a long experience in Umoja, but I think I can speak on behalf of some of my colleagues as well, that we find out in several occasions that the system, because it doesn't force you to follow certain path, sometimes you encounter, you happen to be and contradict some data or some action. So sometimes it's dirty data, and as you and Daniel said before, you need to go and fix it. Whereas in other systems, like before in Galileo, you were forced to follow certain path in order to change that. Now, in some cases, it makes sense. Like I can't remember now. I think it was one of the very last on that was no disposal method required. Maybe the item was lost or stolen, so there is no write-off, no disposal method, let's say, required. That makes sense. I'm just guessing now because this is like a few minutes ago. Daniel was scrolling down, so some of them make sense. Depending on the nature of the write-off and disposal, some don't, and this is one of the issues that we have with the system, that it does not force the user to update, and if you miss to update, it remains uncompleted. That's from my experience. Now I hope somebody can explain more or can add to my comment.
Hi, Brian. Sorry, I was in another meeting with finance, so I lost this half an hour. Are you referring to statuses, wrong status, discrepancies on the status of equipment?
Yes. First of all, thanks, Gianluca, for your intervention. And Claudia, we're talking about mainly the column for system status, right? And those cases where we see two different statuses, maybe even contradicting each other.
Okay, I can give you an explanation. Basically, we have two scenarios: when you issuing equipment and when you do the return of equipment. Okay, the first one, when you do the issue of equipment, if you do not do the data enrichment with the business partner and functional location, and you do not remove certain fields like storage location, etc., the system lead to a mistake and give you two different statuses. Okay, this happens quite often when you do not perform the full data enrichment when you're issuing an equipment. Okay, if you don't put, for example, the functional location and the business partner, the system basically it's a kind of installed available, something like that. It gives you a double status. Okay.
Understood. Yes.
The same thing when you do the return voucher. If you do the, you know that when you do the good return, you have to first dismantling the equipment record, meaning removing business partner and functional location, then perform the good receipt, and then do the data enrichment, adding storage location, authorization group, etc., etc. Okay. When you return the equipment.
Sorry, Claudio, you're talking about return to stock or reversal of the goods receipt?
Yes,
return to stock. Okay.
Return to stock, skipping the dismantling operation, then the system give you an error. It returns the equipment in stock, but still a business partner and functional locations into the equipment record.
Yeah, Claudio, if you can see my screen, I think it's right here, right? What you're saying, right? Basically, we go from installed to available, but if you don't take this dismantle update of equipment, right? If you don't take action from the user point of view, then the system has some sort of discrepancy, right?
Yes, correct.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right here.
So basically, it's a user which overlooked about the process. It's not the system itself which creates an error. It's the user that do not perform the right operations in a chronological way and as should be done properly.
Sorry, Angelo, I understood that if you, for example, don't remove the functional location.
Yes. If you do not remove, when you do the return voucher, you have to do first dismantling of equipment. You have to remove a functional location and business partner. Once you remove this information from the equipment record, then you can perform the good return. If you skip the dismantling and you return the equipment in stock, keeping functional location and business partner, the system creates automatically a wrong status.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And it's exactly right. So yes,
Piero Contento, from our experience in miniatures, you should have more scenarios that affected us during the liquidation. Can you mention a few, please?
Yes, Joe. Okay. First of all, thanks to Claudio's explanation. But again, we are talking about not the system, perspective, but how the operator can perform some transactions. Correct the fact that during the return back to stock of each item, if you don't perform the dismantling, the system will create this kind of, let's say, double system status, okay, in terms of, again, esto installed. But again, this can be easy. It's not easy, but you have to know that there is a manual procedure to update correctly the status as well. The other fact that Joe mentioned is that sometimes the equipment have been totally, let's say, removed, and in this case deactivated from the inventory, but without doing the proper transaction into the inventory and then into the warehouse module as well. That's why I'm just saying, I'm wondering then here, based on your data retrieved in your report, I think that this is only a preliminary, let's say, how can I say, inspection in the inventory. No, the first, look that you can have into the inventory, and it's fine. But after this, you have to dig more and more, and you have to identify better why you have this strange, let's say, the statuses. That's all.
Exactly. I think it's what Pietro was exactly saying is just that's the initial plan of attack that as well Brian was saying, right? So for example, now, if I see that these objects should be deactivated from the system point of view, how come these equipments are idle or even assigned? So I may want to take a look at these ones, right? So the good thing about this report is just it gives you this perspective. And at least, because I can only imagine how difficult it must be to go, you're being kind of some sort of an astronaut going to a mission there, and all of a sudden you really have to be an expert in plenty of different processes, and you have to have answers to everyone, right? I can only imagine how difficult it's to really understand and how only the equipments are mapped and where the problems may be, right? So a way to understand the reality may be this report and some others in BI, right? But we cannot perform any transactions in ECC without even understanding where to take action to, right? So here it will be a way to understand and a way to tackle the situation, in my opinion, right? As well as some others. Not BI is not only the unique answer, but at least it's giving you a good perspective.
Okay, and just to add to that, sorry, Claudio, just to add, this is why I always emphasize where the system fails or us as users, in the sense that it doesn't flag or alert us to other users doing some actions before another action is done beforehand. I mean, in Minijuice, it was a nightmare trying to fix these issues, and this is something wrong with the system. I mean, you shouldn't be. The system should not allow you to deactivate the system or an asset or a piece of equipment, or at least alert you to say, hey, can you check your user status first before you move on to deactivation?
Yeah, you're so right. Yeah.
Regarding the system, do not prevent you to open a notification for write-off and initiate the write-off of equipment that is in use. So basically, you can write off something that is in use directly from the use, avoiding the dismantling and avoiding to take it back to the inventory.
Yes, Claudio. Sorry if you're not finished.
So basically, this creates also an issue later on when you try to do the final disposal of the equipment, because as we know, equipment before to initiate it for write-off should be returned to stock, but the system do not prevent the operator to initiate the write-off from the use directly.
I see. Thanks. Thank you guys for your intervention, Pietro, Joseph, and Claudio. So that's extremely important. If the attendees that are a part of this training that are very new to all these transactions can get something out of what we're discussing here, is mainly the fact that if you pull a report right in BI like Daniel did, a double status or a double system status should raise a flag, right? Should raise an alarm and say, okay, something happened here. As Elena was explaining during her transactions, that's why I know notifications are not mandatory, and I know some people will skip them, but it's a very good way to make sure you don't skip a step in what you're trying to do in a transaction if you follow the tasks. If everything is done properly, these system statuses will not duplicate, right? They'll be accurate all the time. So that's why it's important to keep doing the transactions accurately. So keep in mind these statuses, right? It has to be the single status, right? With the single status, the statuses need to make sense, system versus user. If you see double statuses in system status, that should raise an alarm right away. And if you see a system status that makes no sense with the user status, that should do so as well. Just wanted to make that comment.
And Brian, if we have time just to show another report, which is called It's another AWS on equipment utilization. It's called. This is the initial, let's say, layout of the equipment utilization. Basically, how this is calculated is just how this KPI is calculated. It's that once the equipment is in place, it's, let's say, created into the system, right? When it's received into the inventory, right, from the goods receipt perspective, up until the end, then the clock start clicking, right? So it's like starting the life of this piece of equipment. Then how it's utilized depending on if it is installed. So if the laptop that I'm using, it's been 5 years in the system, but it's been installed only 1 year with myself, that means that the percentage of utilization of this piece of equipment, it's only 20%, right? So it's a simple division between the equipment status installed to a particular VP and functional location versus the time that it's been in the system, right? So this report will give you a good idea of how many days this, as a general, for example, in UNAMID, has been the equipments have been used. We can see that in general in UNAMID, taking all the pieces of equipment, over 71,000 pieces of equipment, we can say that 60.3% of the equipment had been used in a way, and 30-something percent, or excuse me, 33% more or less of those pieces of equipment have never been used, right? So it's as well, this is the initial, let's say, landscape, and from there you can just drag and drop the equipment's data, right? For example, if you want to do an analysis by material description, you drag and drop over here, right? And apologies if it is gonna take some time. But then what you're doing is you're basically enriching and giving more granularity to the whole analysis by just dragging and dropping the different categories of elements, right? So this is another report. It's called the KPI 11, the percentage of time that the pieces of equipment have been used. And the way it's being calculated, it's, as I said, the time that this equipment has been in the status installed and assigned, right? System status installed, and then user status assigned, divided into the number of days that this piece of equipment has been in our books from the inventory point of view. Okay, so that's another report that you can use in order to understand how the equipments are in the mission that you're going to be deployed in. And then just to share that I will drag and drop into the chat the presentation with the different slides and even exercises, right? That you can down the road do once you have probably the access to the system, and when you are more familiar with how to use it. But as I said yesterday, and I will keep saying this during these 2 weeks, this is just the entry point. We're not going to leave you here with the access and then a bunch of reports. The idea is to go with you hand by hand as you start to understand the data and you start as you start understanding how this process works. And we will be supporting you in all this way in the post-training activities as well, right? But because it's difficult to absorb not only the business processes, but the transactions within the business processes, the role is involved, and on top of that, the cherry on the cake will be 45 different reports in BI that you have to be familiar with within 2 weeks. So it will be impossible. That's why, you know, this project is lasting more than 2 weeks in a way. So we will be able to support you for the BI part after this training ends. So I don't know if that's all from my end in terms of BI reporting for AWS. There are more reports, but I think that these two are the most important that we can use today based on the assignment and enrichment process that we saw during the morning session. Over to you, Brian. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks. I think it's been very useful. And if you do have the roles for these reports, I suggest you take some time, just like you do with the exercises, go into BI, run some reports, see how they work, because it's also a learning process, right, to create good reports. I remember the very first few times I was using BI, I was just sort of piling up all the information in the report just to see how it reacted. And then I realized that less is more in BI. So start as small as you can and then drill down or add more afterwards. So be careful how you manage these reports. Also, pay attention to what we just described in this session. Review this video even to understand what Daniel actually added to the rows and the columns and the filters that he applied. So it also helps you. Take a look at these presentations that we're also going to share with you to understand what these reports are actually showing to you, right? What's the meaning behind these reports, the objective. Check the job aid too, so you understand what you're getting. And the discussions that we've just had, I think, are brilliant, because they're going to be the key when you're deployed to understand what you have to do. Because you're going to get there, and for those that are new to all of this and wonder, you know, what am I doing? I'm really not performing the transaction exactly like Elena or Brian told me in the exercise. But because we don't know exactly what you're going to face, but we have to at least tell you the typical transactions you're going to have to perform. But that's different from finding a problem, understanding it's a problem, and then understanding what solution has to be performed. You'll have the tools to do that, but you have to first understand if there's a problem. And this is one of those good reports to check that. Now, what Elena has been explaining today is sort of a middle process, right, of something that you have to do in between other processes. You'll see tomorrow when I do addition to stock and return to stock, there are a large number of scenarios for each one of these transactions. There's like 5, if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 6 for addition, and then another 5 or 6 for return. These transactions also have an impact in the enrichment of equipment statuses. And that's what Claudio was saying. If you do a return to stock and you forget to remove the BP, then you have an issue, right, that will eventually impact in the long run in the system. So when we learn tomorrow how to do return to stock, addition to stock, even if it's just one of the processes out of the 6, you have to understand that also the equipment enrichment that we learned today is a key step in this transaction too. And making a mistake there is going to actually mean that you did the entire process of return to stock wrongly. Even though this may not be your role in the mission, if you do get all these roles and you're able to not only do the return to stock, but also update the equipment, it's your responsibility to do it right as well. If not, you're just generating another issue too. Okay, so I know it's a lot, and we'll be dealing with this little by little tomorrow too. We'll revisit the enrichment, and we'll take a look at the types of situations you can encounter. And I think together, maybe we can get a good idea of how to react to these situations. And that's all from my part. I don't know if there's any other closing remarks from your side or anyone else.
Only just to add, because I forgot to, there are so many things that I wanted to share, and because the system was not working very well. Let me just try to share my screen again. Or if you could share yours, Brian, and then I resume, because there is some sort of a issue glitch here that I cannot leave my screen. Can you please take over, and then I will take over again?
Yeah, sure thing. Hold on. Let me just click on the sharing here on my screen, and now everybody should be seeing my login page for Umoja.
Perfect. Okay, and then I will request control. Screen 1. I think it's this one. Okay. Do you see this equipment analysis workspace?
You've taken control? No, not yet. We still see just the squares of teams.
Okay.
We don't see that screen exactly yet.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay, now we see a Word document, equipment analysis.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Okay, this is a Word document I created this morning, which the 3 main points or attributes that really are important for this equipment analysis workspace. Okay, and it's another, let's say, tab that we can add in the report that I showed to you, and it's the equipment current logical status. This is some sort of this logical status is status that our BI developers in Valencia, Juan's team, Andrea's team in Valencia created of a mixture of the user status and the stock type goods movement, right? So depending on the user status and the type of goods movement, then you will be able to tag or to put a tag to a particular piece of equipment in whether this equipment is in disposal, in write-off, it has not been found, it's in maintenance, in stocked, it's in blocked stocked, and so on. So it's a combination of these two items, and it's a category that is called equipment current logical status. It's a good one to start your analysis with, and I will try to include it in the tab. So once I export to Excel, you have all tabs on all analysis there. But it's a really good one, and I just found it today because, as I told you, it's 150 different attributes, and you have to go one by one and understand the whole report. So, and then you have screenshots of the material type and the system status codes for, especially if the system tells you, the report tells you that this piece of equipment is out of scope. Out of scope basically means that the equipment has a deletion indicator or a deletion flag. It's assigned in delivery note, and honestly, this is a part that I really don't understand very well, but I think it's important. This assigned in delivery note, whether it's inactive or it's been deactivated, right? So if you see an X in once you launch this report, if you see that the equipment it's out of the scope, it's because from the system point of view, it's happening one of these 5 different statuses. Okay, so I will add this Word document into the package that I will put in the chat along with the Excel and the presentation. So from my end, that's all. Over to you, Brian.
All right, thank you, Daniel. Thank you for sharing that. So it's we're 1 minute away from 4 o'clock. If I'm not mistaken, we will also have the intervention, right, of the HQ, Kirill, I think Vidia, and also Jack. I'm not sure if all 3 of them will be here today. I see Kirill already, and I already put him as a presenter. I'm taking a look to see if Vidia and Jack are there too, and if not, any other questions or comments? Thanks, Elena, and thanks, Daniel, for your interventions today. We'll just share the documentation as we always do with the students at the end of the day, and also the links to the recordings that should be available as soon as we stop this session too. Okay, so if there's nothing else to add before we close our session, I'll just give the mic to Kirill maybe. And I see Vidia is already there too, so I'm going to make her a presenter. Good morning, Maria Vidia Parisi, and good morning, Kirill.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Brian, actually, Viria will take the lead today, so you can add her as a presenter.
All right, perfect. She's already there. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so can I share the presentation?
Yes, you should have now the option in the navigational bar to share your presentation.
Let me try to do that. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Can you guys see the presentation?
We're starting to see a change now. There you go. We see the presentation now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. So yesterday we touched upon the new delegation of authority instrument and the changes that have been introduced in 2019 in the area of property management following the management reform. So continuing with that, today we would like to take you through what we have been working on, and specifically on the establishment of a property management framework, or we want to say better strengthening the property management framework to be a unified and global across all entities. We also wanted to provide you with an update on the policy development and their current status, but also we want to share share in anticipation what is in the pipeline for property management. So moving on that, as we anticipated, we are basically working on strengthening the property management framework and basically to establish one common, unified property management framework across the Secretariat that is in line with management reform and the elimination of this policy approach and different interpretations that existed before and where they were customized basically or shaped based on clients. So we wanted to establish one common approach across the Secretariat that is common for peacekeeping, political missions, office away from headquarters, regionals, commission, tribunals, with policy documents that are provide a unified interpretation and application of the financial regulations and rules for property management, and have an holistic view. We are writing an holistic view on policy that are then fully integrated with and aligned with the requirements set in the financial rules, but also defined in the high-level policy document that have been issued in the past, which are still relevant in relations to the management of property. And we're talking here about STI on management of property, but also the one on IPSAS policy framework, as well as fully integrated with the information circular we issued some time ago on the management of non-capitalized property, and of course with the new delegation of authority instrument that has been rolled out in 2019. The policy are also fully aligned with the management reform and the core principle that have been introduced with the management reform, and specifically should support the decentralization approach and the decision-making approach closer to the point of service delivery. So that's why the policy framework has been currently revised for property management or strengthened, and this is something that started already after the implementation of IPSAS and perhaps the rollout of Umoja. And now when all the organization is fully using IPSAS, we are all in Umoja, and even a new delegation of authority that is common to all entities has been issued. So it makes really business sense to further strengthen that policy framework and making common and unified across the organization. So that has been the effort we are working on. So moving on with the policy under development. We are working on a series of policy documents that deriving from the financials at the FRR on the management of property. We mentioned yesterday the FRR that are related to property management, and we spoke about the 105/20, which delineate the authority. We spoke about 105/21, which specifically address the physical verification of property. We mentioned even 105/23, which is the disposal of property, and we even touched upon at the end with a question that John, raised about 514, which is the regulations on disposal of property in liquidation of a peacekeeping. So starting from that and from this FRR specific related to property management, we are developing further guidance for each of these rule or regulations. So currently we have just finalized the draft policy on physical verifications of property. We have finalized the policy on disposal of property for the one related to 105/23 basically, and also the one for disposal of property in liquidations. All of these guidance the draft is ready and is currently being reviewed by internal stakeholders. It's been shared with internal stakeholders, and even an advanced copies has been given last week it's been provided to UNGSC in support to the rollout of this training basically. So in the next few weeks, we are hoping that this policy will be finalized and issued, and you will receive, of course, a copy. Moving on with that, and what is still in the, what else is in the pipeline? In addition, ad hoc guidance are being developed to address specific areas where policy for a common approach and interpretation is required. We are specifically referring here to the one guidance, for instance, that is the one on assignment of equipment to an end user. This is one of the guidance that you actually specific peacekeeping and political missions have been highly requested in the last few months. And the guidance address the issuance of property to an end user for the sole use of the individuals, but also address the property that is issued for the common use. And we call it in our guidance, we call it that shared use amongst a group of people, individual, a unit, or a service. The guidance provides really the minimum requirement for the assignment of property to an end user. But of course, this can be adjusted at a local level, depending on the local operational requirements, and it can be even more stringent than the one that the requirements provided. In addition, the guidance is also providing information on the two new business partner that have been added in Umoja to collect valuable information for items when they are shared amongst a group of individuals. Whereas the requirement to assign every single piece of equipment to an end user has been lifted, other fields have been created for collecting this valuable information when items are shared amongst individuals. So still to maintain a good accountability framework. The guidance actually has been issued already and should have reached your entity or your office on 17 April. There was a memorandum that was issued by GAMS and specifically by our chief, Jack Howard, to chief and director of administration, and then myself personally actually forwarded a copy to the property management community. But please, if you haven't received a copy, reach out to us and we will be happy to certainly provide you with a copy. In addition to that, we are also working on the development of a framework for tracking and physical verification of heritage items. This relates to gifts, basically, just to give you an idea. So donations that are provided to the UN by donors, and this is different countries that generally donate data to the United Nations. This can be monuments, really real estate, but also art, painting, carpets, any of these items. This requirement came out from an audit recommendation that of last year during the financial audit for volume 1. This may not be actually directly relevant to you in peacekeeping and political missions, because normally you do not have heritage items, but this is something that is very relevant and concern the headquarters, office away from headquarters, and regional commissions, and perhaps even tribunals. We are reaching out to them to know more, actually. Even if it's not really directly relevant to you, nevertheless, I felt that it was in the spirit of breaking the silos and in the way, and in supporting a common property management framework across the organization. It's important that you are aware of this development in the area of property management. Even if today is not specific to you in your job, but might not be fully relevant, but tomorrow perhaps you might be moving in property management in Geneva or even here in New York, and then this all of a sudden becomes really important to you and is actually something you will be dealing with. It's a requirement for these entities. So the recommendation of the auditors was accepted by the administration. with the implementation of this framework set for the end of 2020. In this respect, we have been working, therefore, on developing a policy document that provides the definition of heritage items, what they are, and set the business requirements for recording this item in a system, and also for the conducting the physical verification of this type of property on a regular basis. This is the requirements that auditors have been asking for. In addition, therefore, we are working with the Umoja colleagues to develop a solution in the system in Umoja that is specific for heritage items. Again, this needs to be recorded, tracked, and physically verified. And for this reason, a new equipment type has been created, which will be named H for heritage item. So don't be surprised if in the next few weeks you will see in the system appearing a new type of item. This is for heritage, basically. So another project we have been working along with the supply chain management, specifically demand planning and perhaps also finance colleague, is the introduction of a new function of a new field in Umoja that will be served to capture the operational useful life for the equipment. And this is very relevant to drive demand planning projection for replenishment, but also will be used later on by finance to validate the current standard useful life that is set for assets. So the project is still really in an infant status, but you will receive actually shortly a communication on the availability of this new field in Umoja. The business requirement and the policy to operationalize this concept will be issued later on with the colleagues in supply chain management, and the policy will then provide all the details on how to fill this field, on when, how, and all the frequency and any other requirements. Again, this is just to anticipate some changes that you will see in the system, and of course to keep you abreast of what the new and current developments in the area of property management. The last slide, we also wanted to share that there is a working group led by BTA, and yesterday Kirill mentioned the scope of the BTA, which is this business transformation unit that has been created following management reform. That is basically, this working group is working led by BTA and is working with some technical expertise in the various business area on further strengthening the current delegation of authority instrument, the one that we presented yesterday and that's been rolled out in 2019. So GAMS is working closely with BTA on the property management section. And perhaps this new revision, or this revision of the delegation will also be coming in the next few weeks or months, but within this year. The last point here is basically what I just wanted to share, some information on the training compliance requirements for property management, which is set in the delegation of authority instrument. We mentioned yesterday, I think I anticipated yesterday when we were going through the delegation of authority changes, that for delegation and sub-delegations in property management, there is a mandatory requirement which is set in the delegation of authority instrument. And this is to complete the Inspira property management course for property managers. The requirements to talk about completion within 6 months from the acceptance of the delegation of authority or sub-delegations of property management authority. We just in recent days, it's just something I wanted to share with you. In recent days, we have conducted an analysis with, again, BTA for compliance of this requirement. And here are the results. where we can see here is that it's out of the 158 officials that have property management delegations of authority have acceptance this delegation through the online portal in 2019, and that were mandated to complete the training within 6 months. About 40, I think 39 specifically, officials have completed the training. Very few are still in progress. Others have just enrolled. Few others have even dropped. But the majority of them, and this is a big number, have not even initiated the process for compliance with for taking this training program. So these data are now with BTA, have been provided to the Business Transformation and Accountability Unit, and they are working on strengthening the accountability framework and fine-tuning some mechanism for monitoring this compliance. And this is not only for property management, but perhaps is relevant also to other business areas such as procurement, for instance. So I think I think that concludes actually what we wanted to provide you with the property management policy section. And here we provided you the latest developments, the status of the policy framework, and we also provided you with some anticipation on property management projects and policy that are under development or in the pipeline, or are in the making, as we say. As we are doing now, right now, during this training, by giving our availability and providing our support to you all, please do not hesitate to reach out to GAMS, even for any other property management request you might have in relations to policy, and perhaps to even directly come to me or Edward Lam or Lestrade Charles, which is also part of the policy unit, for any specific queries or questions that you might have related to policy or the delegation of authority. So we are here, of course, to take questions, but even you can reach us to us via email. You know who we are. So I think that's conclude on my side. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maria. If anyone wants to jump in, now is the moment. Thanks for that great presentation. We have another maybe 10 minutes of the session we have planned. If anyone wants to intervene, ask a question, maybe something to be clarified, now would be the best moment.
Yes, Brian.
Yeah, I have a question.
Joe here. Okay, really, thanks for the presentation. It's nice to see that changes can be made in the system when it's needed. However, we would like to see more changes in the system in relation to the system to meet with the business process. For example, the system should not allow people to deactivate an asset before it's removed from the warehouse. It should stop the action completely. Mandatory fields should be flagged as mandatory, and if you don't fill them in, then you can't carry on with the business. So we have a lot of issues like that. Is your office the right office to speak to about these issues where we believe some changes should be made, or should we contact somebody else and discuss these issues?
I mean, Joe, I don't know specifically what you are referring here. There are some other requirements related to warehouse transactions or fields specifically. So I guess we can talk offline on that. You can certainly send it to us what these requirements are and what these needs are, and then we can look through. We can look through and see whether this is something that we can address or they are related to some policy, more stringent or policy interpretation that we need to provide, or whether this is poorly operational and then we need to pass it to some other colleagues in the property management area. My suggestions would be for you to, we can have an offline discussion here to send it to us, the details of what we are talking here, and then see whether they touch policy or it's strictly related to a system that transactions or systems measurements that needs to be established. Suggestion is to send it to us, and then we can have a conversation on that, and we can let you know whether it is something we can address or we need to involve other stakeholders to address it. But certainly send it to us.
Okay, thank you. We'll put something together after the training, a much more comprehensive report on where we believe some changes should be made, especially from lessons learned from the closure of Minijuice, which you were involved in as well. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks. No, they certainly appreciate it. Yeah, we can look together.
Virya, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Thanks for your presentation. I noticed on your presentation the inclusion of operational useful life, and I would like you to elaborate more on that, particularly on the requirement, if it is just a reference for users, or is that going to be impacting the write-off process for the calculation of depreciated value? Thank you.
Okay, so that's a good question, Gianluca. So right now you're going to receive basically a communication that will introduce that there is a new functionality, a new field in the Umoja system, and then as anticipated, there will be a specific guidance that will be followed and in the context of supply chain management, where we'll operationalize this concept. So the introduction of operational useful life is really for demand planning. Is something very relevant for demand planning and for driving the replenishment, and will not affect, to answer to your questions, the financial depreciation. So for financial purposes, the IPSAS useful life will continue to drive the financial requirements. This is an additional operation, another operation, useful life that will be established to capture the operational useful life for each piece of equipment for operational reasons. And I understand, as I say, I can talk much more than that, but I prefer to stop here and just mention that guidance will be provided specifically on how this field will be filled, how this is going to impact, who should be filled this information, what type of assessment the technical unit will need to do, and who he's going to do this transaction. So all these details will be provided in a comprehensive guidance that will be issued later on in a combined or in a coordinated manner with supply chain management and demand planning specifically, and also the finance colleagues. So in the next few days, a communication will come just to inform entities that there is a new field, but nobody will touch right now. It's just a system that has been a field that has been introduced with a change in the Umoja. But for the utilization of this field, further guidance will be provided to every entity, to the end user. I hope that answers your questions.
Yeah, it's clear. Many thanks.
All right, thank you, Gianluca. Thank you, Vidya, also for that. Jack, I see you're adding comments in the chat too. We've added you as a presenter. If you want to intervene at any time, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, thank you very much. No intervention, just to say good afternoon to everyone and let you know we're all here. So, of course, Joe, you guys are, Joe and others, all colleagues, you guys are sort of on the front lines, so to speak, in terms of being able to identify issues that you're seeing, what you're hearing from your trainees, who after all are your clients and our clients as well. So whatever things you're hearing from them, please do feel free to send them our way. It goes without saying that here in New York, we're not always exactly clear 100%, let's be honest, about who's responsible for answering which question, but that shouldn't matter to you or to, well, primarily to your clients. So that shouldn't matter at all. Please feel free to send them our way, and of course we'll figure out how to best address them. I see this interaction as essential in informing our work, our policy work, and also helping identify whether there's gaps in policy or whether there's clearly a gray area between, I sometimes call it policy with a big P, and operational guidance. And there's different departments in New York that are handling both things, but absolutely we crave that feedback, actually. Otherwise, we don't know how to do our job. So please do send it along. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. And just so that you yourself and also Kirill and Vidya understand, today we basically covered processes of enrichment, assignment, and handover of equipment. So we were dealing with system statuses and user statuses. So that's where I think the first intervention from Joseph Kenny was more related to what the system allows you to do or shouldn't allow you to do. So I know it may not be directly related to what the Vidya was presenting today. So that's why we haven't shared any other concerns. They were more related to those types of things. We can share them maybe as things go on throughout the training. We can reach out to you guys, but particularly to what Vidya was presenting, I think only Gianluca made a direct comment towards that. Besides that, everything was more related to the training.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
And yes, thank you, Nico. Also, Nico's writing in the chat. And of course, Vidya, if you guys can share that presentation with us like Kirill did, I also share that with the attendees in the email that we send at the end of the day.
Yes, we'll do that. We'll share a copy with you. Thank you.
Thank you. And from my side, that's it. I don't know if any of the trainers want to ask anything else or attendees. There's 1 minute left for what we have scheduled. If there's something else, please intervene now.
Nothing from my side. Thanks everyone for listening today. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, then. Seems like there's nothing else. So thank you once again, Jack, Vidya, and Kirill for intervening in the afternoon. For you guys, it's morning. And thank you guys for participating in today's training. Again, we'll keep in touch. Also, we'll send an email shortly with the links of the recordings and the documents that we've shared today. I think it's been a great session as well. We've also added the BI element, and hopefully you guys are picking up on what we're discussing. I know it's a lot of information, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.